There we go. Right, we're recording now. It should pick up your audio and my audio and what I can see. Okay, cool. So this is a bit of a preference question, and I can probably answer it myself because I can see what you're looking at. But do you find it helpful to have the steering wheel on in front of you with your own hands on your own wheel and the virtual hands on the virtual wheel? Or have you just never thought about it? Or is it a preference?
It made sense at the time a year and a half, a year ago, and I never considered it after that.
Okay, cool.
I'm happy to change it.
So, I'll tell you what, for today's session, try a couple of things for me, and if you hate them, we'll go back to how they were. So, first thing that I want to do is switch the steering wheel off, because I want your own physical hands on your own physical wheel to be your reference of where the wheels are pointed. What I'd rather not have is a slightly delayed virtual wheel kind of confusing the process, if you see what I mean. I want
that makes a lot of sense
to be the real inputs. Cool. So let's just exit the car for the moment, and we'll just go in the graphics options and switch off the wheel. So we just go, if you don't know how to do it, you probably do, is just go to graphic, that's it, and then where it says show driver arms, you can just change that to don't. So it's near the top right. So
do you want me to hide steering wheel as well?
Yeah, hide steering wheel. There we go. Now the time that I tell people to leave that on is if you're in VR, because if you're in VR, you can't see your own steering wheel and you can't see your hands, so you need that reference. But
that makes sense.
Since you're not, then we'll leave it on hide. So okay, next thing then, you can click done on that. Field of view. I think we're probably fine with that. What that looked like from the cockpit was the car was the right size for you. Obviously, if you want to sit any higher up, you're welcome to shift the seat position up. Put the camera wherever you feel you can see the most, and you can you've got the best view of what you need to see. On a single screen, I think your view there is fine. The only thing I would tweak if I was driving your car is I might just raise the seat up, but that's just preference. Obviously, in real life, you have the seat as low as possible for centre of gravity. There's no centre of gravity disadvantage to going as high as you want in this. So in a single-seater, for example, I go really high unless the halo is in the way, because I just want a better view. I want, it isn't real life, and I want the best possible advantage and the easiest view into the next corner. But I'll leave that totally up to you. If you like how you're sitting there, that's totally fine. It's pretty normal.
In the future, I'll play with it.
Yeah.
I don't want to mod it right now, but I'll play with that in the future, because that makes sense.
Cool. Sounds good to me. Next one then is head movement. Now this is one that most people don't even realise is a thing. So first of all, I just want to see if you just drive out of the pits and then brake for the first corner. I just want to see what your camera does. I think I've already seen it. Yeah, I can already see it happening right now. Yep, there we go. I can see the car is bobbing around on the screen as it goes over the bumps. So effectively, your camera is acting like a bit of a virtual gimbal, and the car is moving around you. We don't want that. We want your on-screen cockpit. You see when you braked there and the whole of the front of the car dipped down relative to the world? We want your cockpit to be fixed to your actual cockpit. So the thing you're sitting in, if that's not moving, we don't want your virtual cockpit to be moving. So this is going to make sense when we do it, okay? So I want the world...
I understand what you're saying. I don't know how to change it, but that makes sense.
Yeah, we're going to change it now, don't worry. Most people have it exactly as you've got it because they never realised you could even change it. So you're on the correct screen there. I'm just going to go onto mine to make sure I tell you what to change. It's only a very, very small change. So if you hit Option down the bottom, and you've got Driver's View. Okay, and the thing you need to change is roll chassis and pitch chassis are correct. They stay at 100%, but neck motion goes down to 0. That's it. That's all you're changing. Essentially, iRacing builds in a bit of kind of simulated G-force, I think, to make it look a bit more dynamic. But that's just a thing they've done ever since it was more gamey and less simmy. And if you ever go and use, like, you might have done this, if you ever go and use, like, a pro race team's sim, the car on screen definitely does not move around relative to you. Because in real life, although obviously you are kind of stabilising your view in real life, and the car does move up and down a bit compared to your body in real life, you're fixed to the seat and you compensate, because you can feel the G-force, you're compensating for it, and so you don't feel like the car is moving around
Yeah,
relative to
you compensate automatically, but without having to think about it. In
Exactly.
this case, you're just making your view worse. I understand.
Precisely. Yeah. And what I want you to know is if the thing is moving, if something's moving on screen, it means there's actually something dynamic happening rather than you're going over a bump or you're braking or whatever. So that's cool. You might not even notice now when you drive this, or it might feel weird for a few laps, or you might like it more. But the one thing I say is I change that with every single new driver, unless they've already got it changed. And most people, in fact, I've never had someone ask to change it back later. Or at least they've never told me they've changed it back. So normally they forget that they've even changed it. So there we go. Right, that's that. So that's kind of most of the checks. Let me just check there's nothing else on my list here. Oh, no, there's a couple more things. Right, okay, so if we go to options again, and I just want to see basically your steering wheel and your pedals up there. Okay, so this sounds really basic, but just turn the steering wheel 90 degrees one side or the other. Yeah, okay, fine. That's normally the case. Now, press the brake pedal as if you're slamming the brakes on for a heavy braking point at the end of the straight. So, wow, okay, that was like a switch. Okay.
I just pushed it hard. I don't.
Yeah, no, that's fine. No, what I'm looking at here is just how easily the red bar moves up, like effectively how squishy the pedal is. So you've sent me this information. You can probably just tell me, what are your pedals? Let's have a look.
It's a Fanatec CSL.
I think I used to have that. I'm pretty sure. Oh yeah, I can see it.
Yeah.
Basic potentiometer style pedal. Yeah, okay. So this is it's not a load cell, not a particularly stiff pedal. Right, so
No, it's pretty light.
Cool.
But it's more progressive, so I'm okay with it for now.
Yeah, that's fine. It's more just so I know, I know what we're talking about. When I look at your braking inputs on the data, it'll make sense knowing how hard you're having to press it to achieve a certain thing. So that's cool. Okay, what's the next thing on my list? We're nearly there. Okay, our correct setup is definitely loaded because I've made this a fixed setup session. And the last thing is just basically whether or not you're happy with your steering weight. This is, again, pretty much just totally personal preference. So it's just a question for you. Are you happy that it's giving you the information you need? Does it feel weighty enough when the car's loaded up and you've got, lateral G acting on the car?
I think so. I mean, I guess I guess I don't know what I don't know, but I played around with those settings in the Fanatec console a bit, and I've gotten to a place where I'm pretty comfortable with it.
Okay. Cool. That's fine by me in that case. That's good. And it's a Fanatec direct drive. Which one is it? Out of interest, I'm not an expert on them, but
I think it's the first generation. I'm not. I actually don't. I couldn't answer that honestly.
Yeah, no problem. So it's not the little cube shaped one, but it's like one of the bigger ones, like a kind of rectangle length one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, it's closer to that. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. That means it's probably one of the more powerful ones. So that's all cool. Good. Okay, right. That's the starting point done. So next, we should probably just talk about what it is exactly you want to achieve in coaching sessions. So I've already read what you've written, which is, if I can read it back to you. Here we go. So improve consistency, fewer accidents. That was the one you ticked. General review of the fundamentals. I can tell there's so much I don't know about how I'm supposed to be pushing the car. So I read from that kind of just general improvement and maybe some direction of...
Yeah, I don't really know how to actually work on this, so I just find myself, okay, let's push harder, and then I'm in the wall again, and I'm like, okay, great. So
that's fine.
Yeah, I don't have any
I'm
not thinking I need to raise my I rating. None of that. I'm sure that'll come by just getting better. But
yeah, okay, great. Okay, that's cool. And at the moment, are you racing in the Mazda series, or are you doing a particular iRacing car?
Mostly just the series is the main. If I were to say an overarching goal of what I'm trying to do, I just want to feel okay enough that I can join a bad league and race at the back of the pack and not constantly bin it.
Yeah. Okay. that sounds absolutely fine. No, I think it's a decent goal. That's a decent aim. Okay, so I will definitely help you with that. I've taken the liberty of already looking at some of your data. So it wasn't from this session, because obviously you've not been in this session yet, but just from some practice that you've done earlier on. So I've got a little bit of an idea of where I think we're going to be focusing and things we're going to be talking about. But I want to see you drive live in this session before we talk about it. Have you used the data tools before, or any data tools?
I can barely read them. I've looked at it and I don't understand them.
Okay, that's cool. What's nice about that is you're going to understand it by the end of this session, and it's going to be really obvious. But that'll just be like a little nice kind of, added on. Like you're going to learn some race driver data interpretation skills, but it gives me a really, really clear, objective insight into exactly how you're driving, and how it differs to what I'm doing. Because what I do in a lot of these sessions, most of these sessions really, is I try and do as much running before the session as possible, so I've got an accurate, recent feel for how this car drives on this track and what I'm doing, and then assuming I'm a relatively decent benchmark, if there's a difference, if you're doing something different, we'll try and tease out why it is, whether it's better or worse, because occasionally it's better. I had a driver yesterday who was doing a couple of corners differently to me, and it was really working well, but we'll see that on the data, and then we'll try and come to a good conclusion of how you can change, or what you can change, and how you can do it better and make it easier for yourself and faster, etc., etc. My suspicion, I don't want to kind of poison the well here by telling you what I think you're about to do before you do it. So I will actually keep my mouth shut, but we'll have a big old chat after each run, and we'll do like a break after each run, and we'll go through the data and that kind of thing. But so
thank you.
So damage is turned off. The car will repair itself if you do have an accident, so don't worry about it. I'm sure you know the tyres are quite slippery and cold on the first lap in this car anyway. Are you familiar with Okayama? Do you know? Well, you must be, because you've driven some laps already. So.
Yeah, no, I'm aware of the track. I'm gonna be very, very careful on this outlap, because I always, if I ever push at all, I just have a bad reference for it. So I'm just not going to on this outlap.
That's absolutely fine. So I'm just gonna jump on board with you. I'm going to mute your live stream. There we go. So I can see your screen, but I'm watching you really via the replay screen. And that's what you'll see if you watch the video back later, when I upload it to YouTube, you'll see what I'm seeing. I've got a fifth screen though, so I'm watching you on triple screens, but I've got a fourth and a fifth screen that are showing different stuff. But if you see me looking away, that's what I'm looking at. It's the other screens. But so basically, just get up to speed. Do some laps that you feel are representative. I'll try and just keep quiet on these ones. I know I'm not keeping quiet right now on your outlap. And when we've done, let's say, 6 timed laps. Let's go for 6 timed laps. That'll give you enough time to warm the tyres, get into the swing of things. We'll then have a little bit of a rest, and we'll look back at your best lap, or what we think is the most representative lap. But don't feel like you have to break the lap record. Just drive as you normally would. And I guess go as fast as you can, but how you would if it was a real session in a race. So, obviously you don't want to be putting it in the wall, but you also don't want to be going slow. And that'll hopefully show me how you naturally drive. And yeah, so I'm going to just keep my mouth shut now, but feel free to talk to me if you want to ask anything.
Late break. Okay, I actually have a question for you.
Go for it.
On this sequential gearbox, am I supposed to lip the throttle on the downshift?
That's a really good question. It doesn't force you to, but I find it prevents a bit of rear locking if you do. So if you're left foot braking and your right foot is completely spare, it seems to help stabilize the car a bit when I blip the throttle in this car. I can't say I drive this car a lot. It's not my most frequent car, but when I did my laps, I was blipping on the downshift. But you don't have to. I think it just adds a little bit of stability by matching the revs on the downshift.
Are you going clutch in on that too?
No, I'm not using the clutch at all.
Okay,
I'm just left foot braking and going blip, blip, blip as I go click, click, click at exactly the same time.
Okay, that's easy. Thank you. a little early on the downshift. I should have gone wider. Sorry about that.
No, it's fine. You never have to be sorry about anything. So you're already significantly faster than the data I have from you already. So that's good. That's a big step. So I'm glad we didn't just judge it from your previous runs you've done.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm probably focusing just a little bit more. I was trying to remember the track yesterday because I hadn't driven it in probably 6 months when you mentioned it, but yeah, I remember my braking points from then, so we'll be fine.
We'll use this track because there's just quite a lot of variation in corner types, and it seems to give you quite a lot of hints towards a driver's style that apply to other tracks too. So things like this really big break at the end of that straight, and you know, it's a really fast straight, a really tight corner that gives you a very particular feel for how a driver brakes on the limit, all that kind of thing.
That makes sense. I am absolutely rubbish at turn 1 on this track, and I struggle with that type of sweeping corner. Oh shit, I did not downshift in time. I got distracted, sorry.
Yeah, sorry,
I struggle with that type of corner on pretty much every track I drive.
Okay.
Anything where it's any large sweeping corner, I can't do it.
Yeah, okay, no problem. And what you'll find is we'll talk about specifics of this track, but they'll apply generally as well, obviously. So we'll dig down into that when we've done a couple more laps. Right, how many have we got to go?
Yeah.
So,
sorry, I'll stop.
4.
I got you.
So let's do 2 more flying laps, and we'll take that as our starting point.
Got it.
Cool, let's do one more. So once you've crossed the line and you've logged this time, just stop the car anywhere and exit it, and that'll upload the data. What you'll find with Garage 61, this software, the moment you are out of the car, it starts sending the data. Well, that was a really good run. That was actually genuinely really good. That was so useful for me to watch you do it, because I saw things that I didn't see in the data. You know, I saw like themes are emerging from watching how you consistently approach certain types of corner. So I've got some stuff to talk about with you straight away. First of all, well done for smashing your time from earlier. Okay, so what I saw from you driving there was that I think you've got some basics really well nailed. You're able to lap and not crash and be relatively consistent, to be honest, in a car that is quite tricky. I know it's not super fast, but when you're trying to be on the limit in this thing, it moves around quite a lot, and it's not the easiest thing out there. But what I saw was where you're losing time, and I'm sure the data's about to back this up, where you're losing time is you are driving in the way that we tell new track drivers to drive on like their first track day to simplify things. So I'm going to show you. Can you see my screen at the moment? You might have to look on Discord to see.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop. Yes.
So you can see me with my cursor spinning around in the middle and stuff here, yeah?
Yeah.
Cool, awesome. Right, so I'm going to just take one corner. This was the last lap you did, and this was going down into the bottom hairpin. I've got no idea what this is called, but the really long corner that leads onto the back straight. And when someone's new to track driving, you might see, if you go to like a race school or if you go on a driving experience day on a track, they put cones out to tell people, brake here, turn in here, hit the apex here. And where they place those cones is never the fastest way through the corner. It's the way that simplifies the corner, so the driver has to do like one thing at a time. So, they're braking in a straight line, then they get the turn done, then they can drive off the corner. And what they're not having to do so much is blend the controls or deal with weight transfer and kind of accelerate, lift, shift the weight in the middle of the corner. They design those cone points to make it so you do one thing after another and life is simple. And it looks to me, certainly in some of the corners, that you're doing that to make your life simple. I'll show you what I mean. So this corner here, we brake and we go really, really deep out to the edge here. You get it turned, so you've got the car stopped, slowed down, we've done nice braking in a straight line, we're rotated, now you're accelerating off the corner. And what you haven't had to do at any point there is kind of manipulate the balance of the car mid-corner on the limit. You've kept the car under control, you've pointed it where you want to go, and then you drive off the corner. Now, unfortunately for you, fortunately, because it's going to be a fun journey, but unfortunately for your current position, it's not as easy as that if we want to actually be fast. So the car will never feel this nice and easy and do exactly what you tell it to. I mean, that's a lovely example of a classic racing school late turn in, late apex. But it's not fast, unfortunately, because where we want to be is basically diving to that inside. And by diving to that inside and carrying that speed, the car is going to want to understeer on you. So it's going to be up to you to manipulate the car in real time. So rather than it getting it turned and then accelerating off the corner, you're going to be doing everything the whole time. You know, we're going to be keeping it on the limit. If it's starting to understeer, you're going to be lifting and forcing it to not understeer. We're going to basically be trying to almost cause a problem, but fixing it the moment that problem happens. And that is kind of next level track driving. It's like, you know, the next tier of driver development in a nutshell. Being on the limit, but being on the limit means the car is doing stuff you don't want it to do, and trying to shorten your feedback loop so you recognize that that's what's happening as quick as possible, you fix it as quickly as possible, and you get back on it as quick as possible. So I'm going to just try and show you what that looks like in the data. So I know we've only looked at one corner, I haven't looked at the whole lap, but this was the trend that I just watched. So let's look at your data, and this is how we load it on Garage 61. You don't ever have to do this unless you fancy it. I'll always do this in the sessions. But we basically go to Teams, I find you under Members, so you're easily down the bottom because you're a W. We go to the latest session, I find the lap we want to take. So let's be fair and take your fastest lap of the session. I know there was an off track, but I don't care. So we'll take... Actually, let's take your second fastest lap, because it was only half a tenth different, and it was later in the session. So it's likely that that was more representative of your, you know, your flow. So let's go with that one.
Yeah. No, I just kept trying to cut that corner for absolutely no reason, and had an off track, and I was stupid.
So I'm going to delete the lap that was from yesterday, because you're way quicker than that, so I don't care about that one. So let's just get rid of that. So now it's you versus me. Generally, the lap you're comparing, so like, the second lap you're bringing in, which is you, will generally be red, and then the baseline lap is generally blue. That when we add in extra laps, I'll make them bright colours so you know what's what. But basically, I'm blue, you're red in all of the channels of data. And what we're looking at here is speed, throttle position, brake pressure, gear selection, engine revs, and steering angle. So those are the things. That's basically all the things you can control as a driver. That's what we're looking at here. And this is the beginning of the lap, this is the end of the lap. So obviously start line, start line. Every peak on this... Can you see this, by the way? Can you still see what I'm looking at? So every peak on the top line, this is really the main line. So the thing we're looking at is this top one. Normally we look at this, and then if there's a problem with this, we find out why that was by looking at the others. But the top channel of data is really the most important. Every peak at the top of the graph is the highest speed you achieve before a corner. Every trough is the minimum speed you achieved in a corner. And obviously everything else in between is you speeding up to the next one. So that's kind of in a nutshell what we're looking at. And your aim is for the red line to be above the blue line as much as possible, because that means you're going quicker than me as much as possible. And anytime the red line's below the blue line, the car is going slower than it might have been able to. But sometimes you're going to see stuff like just here going into turn 2, and obviously wherever I put the cursor, you can see where we are on the map as well, on the red dot. You can see it's going into turn 2 here. Sometimes the red line will be above the blue line. Like
yeah, you broke earlier, but you got a longer time at a higher speed, I understand.
Exactly. Then on the exit, obviously you lose out. So that's kind of a normal thing we look at. But the corner we're focusing on is this one over here. So let's specifically look at this one. And if I just glanced at this data without having watched your video, I would be drawn to that corner immediately, because that's where the biggest gap is, certainly in the first half of the lap, in terms of minimum speed. So your minimum speed there was like 76 kilometers an hour. Sorry, I'm talking about kilometers an hour. We also use miles, obviously, in the UK.
You can say whatever, I understand.
But, okay, fine. For motorsport, I just like the additional resolution that the kilometers give you. So,
yeah, no problem.
Your minimum speed is down at 74, and mine happened slightly later, and it was 95. So there's like 20k difference in the middle. And the reason is because of exactly what we just spoke about. So I'm going to zoom in on that. You just basically click and drag, and it zooms in so we can see it in a little bit more detail. And so just watch yours again in full speed. I know you can't hear this. I can hear the audio. You'll hear it on the video if you watch it afterwards, but I know you can't hear it through Discord probably. But so that was what we saw. You went really deep and then cut back. Got a brilliant exit, probably. Probably got a really bloody good exit. But I imagine not enough of a good exit that it'll ever make up for that loss of speed on the way in. So let's have a look at what we might be able to do different for your next run, just so we know. So we can zoom in and look at the line. So you can see the line I took here, which was obviously a lot earlier going to the middle here, and then driving off. I'm later on the throttle than you, exactly as you'd expect. Your line you've done there. In fact, we're looking at a different lap here, because this is your best lap, and the lap here we're looking at was your final lap. So actually, when we look at the data, you're not quite doing it as exaggerated a line on the way in. You've come a little bit tighter on this one, but even so, it's a similar effect. You're able to get on the power much earlier. So flat line at the top of this one, which is the throttle trace, means full power. Flat line at the bottom, obviously no power. Everything in between, as you're getting on the gas. But you get to 100% throttle, a good how many meters earlier than me? Like 5 or 6, something like that. Maybe more, maybe 10 meters earlier. Which means you are going to have a better drive off the corner, but because you're coming from such a lower speed, it only ever caught up. There was never a point there where it was ahead. So, and you also obviously had to, you braked a little bit longer to make sure you got that speed down. That's this one. So the question is, how can you tell? Like, how would you know that without me just saying you need to turn in earlier? You're not always going to have me there telling you. So how would you know? Because that's what's important, being able to work it out on your own when I'm not sat here. So I try and look at it in a couple of ways. If you had like infinite grip and the car wasn't going to fall over, the quickest way around the track would basically be the shortest way around, wouldn't it? Like you'd drive as tight as you could around all the corners. You'd only go as wide as you absolutely had to go, and you take the straightest possible line to the inside of every corner. So like from the outside here on this straight, you just basically go diagonally, very, very gradually all the way down the straight to the inside. You just draw the geometrically shortest distance round. But obviously that isn't physically possible because you don't have infinite grip. So every single corner is going to be a compromise between distance and how much grip you've got and how much speed therefore you can carry through. So you don't want to go further than you need to go, but you also want to carry as much speed as you can get away with. So my starting point would always be, can I go the shortest possible line? And if I can't, why can't I? What's the limitation? So for this corner, for example, I'm clearly taking a much shorter line in, but that means I'm going to have to do something to make the car grip here at this point. If I just carry that speed in and don't keep slowing down, it's going to just go straight on. I'm going to end up over here somewhere. So what we do is basically force the car to do the angle we want. Now, actually, interestingly, looking at the data for this corner, there's not really much complicated going on. I'm simply being patient. That's all I'm doing. So this isn't actually very tricky on this lap. I'm not doing anything weird with the brakes, apart from, I guess here, I'm doing a little bit of an extra trail. I've got 3% brake on there, but that's really nothing. So actually, this corner, there's no magic. I'm just going in earlier and gradually slowing down. So I'm going to get you to try this in the next run. If you are finding there's a problem, if you're finding by doing that shorter line you're running wide, then we'll address that separately, because it's probably that we just didn't quite slow it down enough. But the fact is, for this corner, I've tried it as short as I can. If I went any quicker, I'd run wide. So I've gone, okay, I want to go short, and the fastest speed I can get away with without running wide. I haven't run wide. I've managed to still go a nice short distance. And that's kind of just the conclusion I've come to, just from trial and error. But the starting point is, how tight can I go carrying the maximum possible speed? And obviously, because it's not my first time on a track, it's not my first time going through a corner of this kind of shape, I'm not going in blind. I've got kind of an expectation level. I haven't gone in flat out and tried to just stick to the inside, like maybe a brand new driver, first timer might do. And obviously, you're not doing that either. But your compromise is slightly too far towards the safety of getting it slowed down to a definitely slow enough speed. So, in short, everything I've just said there, we can boil down to, I want you to be a bit more on the limit of the front tyres on the way in, rather than being under the limit of what the car can do and being nice to the car. I want you to be pushing the realms of possibility by going in narrower and faster, and we'll then see what happens from that point. Because what I haven't seen here is what you'll do to deal with it if you go over that limit, and how we then fix that. At the moment, we're basically just going a bit too wide and a little bit too slow. So that's it, right. I know we've done ages talking about one corner, but we'll probably see that trend in some other corners. So let's just zoom back out, look at some others. Okay, so turn 1. You said you were rubbish at turn 1. That's a very British word, rubbish. Turn 1, you said you're rubbish, and turn 1, you're definitely going wide. Slightly differently to the hairpin we just looked at, though, because you're going wide after the corner on this one. So this one let's be specific and say exactly why this corner is causing you problems, certainly on this lap, at least. So for a start, you're braking way later than me. Like, I feel like I'm on the limit, and you're not getting on the brakes for another 6 or 7 meters later than me. And then when you do it, you're obviously arriving at a higher speed, braking much harder, but you're also off the brakes earlier than me. So not only are you braking later, you're coming off the brakes sooner, so the car is going to struggle to get through there on the tightest line, the line that we're considering optimal, so covering a shorter distance. So if I was just to tell you what to change for this one on the next run, just to try, first of all, it's going to be brake earlier, downshift earlier, because you'll be slowing down earlier, so you're going to need to change down the gears earlier, and actually reach your minimum speed a bit later. Because what's happening is you're braking so hard where you're braking late, you're actually getting the car down to your minimum speed by here, so quite early, like well before you've reached the apex for sure. You know you've got it down, so you feel this is a bit slow, so you're getting back on the power quite early, and then at this phase of the corner, you're going way faster than I am, and that then pushes you wide. So we're going to try and just basically move the minimum speed a bit later, and we're going to try and go a bit shorter towards the apex. At the moment, because of the speed we're carrying in, we're not quite making it to the apex and still getting on the power and pushing the car wider and wider. So we're going to just try and be a little bit more like geometrically accurate with where our apex is and how we get to the apex. So earlier braking,
that makes sense.
Stay on the brakes a bit longer. So we're going to flatten your braking trace. At the moment, it's one big hard push and then you're off. But by being off the brakes there, which is, again, you can see on the map there, quite early in the corner, there's very little weight on the nose of the car right then. Plus, you get back on the power, which takes all the weight off the nose, and then you've got less grip on the front end. You can see I'm keeping the brake on here, and here, even though it's only like 5 or 6%, say 10% nearly just there, it's enough to keep the weight on the nose at the very point I want it on the nose, just there, like approaching the apex. So in fact, let's just take this opportunity to look at what that looked like from your view into that first corner.
Yeah, I just slid the car out of there for no reason.
Yeah, so hang on.
Okay.
Let me just make sure I'm looking at the right lap. Yeah, so we go in. This is the lap. Here we go. So I just looked at the wrong lap there. So this is the lap we've been looking at. So I think on other laps, you actually did make it to the apex. But this time, you could see you weren't going to make it, but you just got on the gas anyway and ran wide. So we're going to basically try and make sure you get to the inside there. You're going to do that by braking earlier, braking a little bit less hard, but over a longer period, and that'll guide the car into the apex, and it'll just be easier.
Okay, this is going to... I'm going to ask two very strange questions. I just...
Do it.
Acknowledge that I'm going to sound ignorant, and that's fine.
There's no... You will not sound ignorant. There's no way you could ask me something that someone hasn't asked me before. But I'm waiting for it. Let's do it.
Okay, first question. So... I really have trouble identifying what the apex of the turn is, because sometimes it's not geometric, right?
Yeah.
Should I always assume it's geometric and then adjust to look for faster lines, or how do I approach finding a better line, I guess, is a better question to ask.
That's definitely not ignorant. That's an extremely good question. And the answer is, it's really, really difficult to answer. So let me
That's why I figured it was going to be a weird question.
Yeah, let me give you my definition of an apex. This was what the chief instructor of Silverstone told me like 20 years ago. And it's what I've always used as a starting point for an apex. Because a lot of people will say, right, I need to know where the apex is, and then I'll drive to that line. But essentially, if you start thinking about the apex is simply where the racing line meets the inside of the corner. So the apex is almost an outcome. It's an emergent property of whatever the best line through that corner is. So so we'll look at it the other way around. What's the fastest way through that corner? And then when we can kind of figure that out, what gives you the best compromise of distance and speed that we were just talking about a minute ago? Then wherever you get nearest to the inside in that best compromise, that's the apex. So rather than trying to go, okay, looking at the shape of the corner going, right, the apex is probably like over there. Instead of that, just go, I know I need to get to the inside at some point, probably. That's just how it works. You know, to give you the minimal average steering angle as a kind of general rule, you're going to need to go outside, inside, outside in some respect. Otherwise, if you go inside, 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 you've got too much steering angle. You can't carry any speed. If you go outside, 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 you're going too far. So you need to do outside, inside, outside to give you the minimum average steering angle. So that means somewhere there's going to be an inside. But where that inside is depends on what comes before and what comes after. So, for example, if there's a really long straight after a corner, generally the inside, which we're going to call the apex, comes a bit later because there's more benefit to getting a better exit. And if there's a very, very short straight following a particular corner, normally that apex point or your inside of the outside, inside, outside comes earlier. That's just a kind of general idea. It's not. It all is situation dependent. It's car dependent. It's track conditions dependent. It's.
But that's helpful.
Yeah, but so there's no like hard and fast rule. But the way I'm looking at this is the fastest way for me to get from this bit. So I guess just before I brake actually. So here to here, which is where I start slowing down for the next corner. So we're kind of taking that as a segment, like from the braking point of one corner to the braking point of the next corner. That zone, because it's kind of neutralised. Once you're back on the brakes and you're into that corner, we're thinking of the next compromise. But the fastest way between those points, I've deemed to be the compromise, which means I go in at this angle. In fact, let's go from the outside view. It's probably a little bit easier to see. So I want a slightly short distance. I have a relative, I'd say a medium long apex, because apexes aren't necessarily just a specific point. Sometimes they're like a long or a short one. You know, some corners you stay on the inside for ages. This is kind of, look, we're on the inside, say, like now, and then we're off. So it's kind of like a medium long apex. And then the exit, we don't actually go all the way outside. So although it's normally outside, inside, outside, sometimes it's outside, inside, kind of outside, because I could go all the way wide, but that would then ruin the next corner. It would mean I have less time to get over to the right-hand side, and I'll be travelling further. So I wouldn't know that just by looking at the track. You know, if you just show me a picture of the track, I only know that because I've done enough laps and tried the different techniques and seen on the Delta, this one works out best. And I've just come to that conclusion. Or at least I've seen other similar sections of other similar tracks with, you know, where the car is quite small and the track is quite wide, like here, and known that, okay, there's a limit to how much benefit I'm going to get by going wider than that. Anyway, sorry, I've gone into quite a lot of detail about this one corner.
No, but that's really helpful. The second question, just so it's much briefer. Are you telling me I need to learn how to like use the slip angle? Is that something I need to figure out soon-ish? Because I don't understand actually how to create 5 degrees of additional steering angle upon which I'm sliding the tires to create additional grip. Like, I understand that conceptually, but I don't actually know how to do that at all.
Okay, so you're saying, do you need to learn, like, how much extra angle you need, like, as in slip angle of the front tires?
Whenever I try to slide the fronts, I, like, a little bit, and to create the slip angle, which is how it's been described to me in books, I lose the car immediately. Yeah. And I obviously that's just like inexperience, right? That makes sense. But is that something I should start doing immediately, or is that something I need to work up to even try to do?
So the way you've kind of put it there, it's not something I've never considered or thought of trying to create a slip angle on the front tires. So I'll tell you how I would. I think it's a better way to think of it. So I think the answer to your question is no. Don't worry. You don't need to do the thing you just said. What you need to do, the only thing you really need to do in that kind of it relates to this is, you need to be quite clear on when the front end is sliding and when you've reached the limit of the amount of steering you can apply that is making a difference. So let's try and put that better. So if I go into this corner and I just crank on maximum steering lock, obviously that doesn't turn the car any better than using much less steering lock, because I've gone past the ideal slip angle. I've gone past the amount of steering that these tires can cope with at this speed. You know, there's some, for a given amount of weight on top of them, you know, because there's a bit of weight transfer, there is a limit to how far I can turn the steering wheel at a certain speed. So without additional weight transfer, there's kind of like, you could put a number on it. You could say, and it's probably something like what I'm doing here. So say just there. Let's say it's 98 kilometers an hour. Is at that speed, these tyres can only cope with that much steering angle. And you're seeing my steering wheel on the screen, by the way, because we're looking at a replay screen. I don't have the steering wheel on, like I told you not to have it on. So anyway, so that's the limit. If I apply more steering than that, it doesn't turn any better. In fact, it probably turns worse. There's a small amount of... You've got a small little leeway where you can go maybe 1 or 2 degrees, and it's kind of roughly the same. But as a race driver, you should be, if not consciously aware, hopefully subconsciously aware of how far your hands are turned, and that there's a point at which more angle does not create more vehicle rotation, and that's where you should stop. And the thing that's much more important than considering trying to stay at, say, 5 degrees slip angle or whatever it is, you know, it might have said in a book that you were talking about, the thing to consider next is, if you want to keep it on the limit like that, you're probably going to be going slightly past the maximum speed you can carry for that angle, and then you need to bring it back by doing something. So lifting off the throttle, in extreme circumstances, nudging the brakes. But in order to stay on that limit, what you don't tend to do is go, say, in this example, 98 kilometers an hour, and then go, okay, we'll just stay there and that's probably fine. Because you'll find you'll then be slightly under the limit all the time. What you need to be doing is finding that limit, trying to just overstep it by like a tiny increment, like 1 or 2 kilometers an hour, and bringing it back from there to force the car to rotate. So I don't know whether I've got a good example of that here, but in fact, maybe I do have a good example. If I go in slow-mo, there's going to be some pedal inputs here. I haven't really watched this. You see how I've got 2 things happening at the same time here? And you see how the steering wheel is not staying at a constant angle. It's like reducing there, reducing, then it's back on, a little bit of reduction, it's back on. It's because I'm trying to basically, you know, hold the car on that absolute maximum limit of what these tyres can cope with at this angle, and be quite aware of, I want the car to rotate. I'm going to make it rotate by, you know, just kind of dancing on the brake pedal, forcing a bit more weight on the nose, lifting at the same time, like turn in, get in now, you know, like just forcing it, but over a very, very short period of time. And it doesn't really look like much from the outside. If you look at it from the outside without the pedal inputs, it kind of just looks like the car is going to the inside and then moving back to the middle. But obviously in the cockpit, there's a lot more
But you're
going
fighting
on.
it the entire time.
Yeah, you're doing like lots of very small things all the time to keep it on that limit. So I think that's much more important than, like, you definitely don't have to think about, okay, that I should be scrubbing the fronts at a certain angle. What you should be doing is going the fastest you can go, where you're nearly at the point with the steering angle that any more steering makes it understeer. Like, you're at the maximum steering you can give it for this speed. And then, you know, there's not anything, you know, there's no additional time you're leaving on the table. But what you'll notice is you weren't doing that at that other corner we looked at, for sure. The car went exactly where you told it to.
Yep.
You didn't have to make it go there. You slowed down, you turned, it did it. and it should never do it that readily. The car should kind of fight against what you want it to do. But obviously, if it massively fights against it, you've probably gone in way too fast. So you've got to only just be a little bit over that limit. Sorry, I've spent ages talking about this one corner. But
That's
yeah,
fine.
so anyway. So the reason, as we said before, the reason is these concepts then start applying to all the corners on all the tracks. So Okayama is our starting point. Okay, so when we look back at that data, because I know we've only done that corner and this corner, to give you like an objective thing to change, because you're going to have to try this, and then it will just like naturally make more and more and more sense when we go into other corners. For this corner, you're basically doing the opposite of what you did at that hairpin at the end of the next big straight. You're going a bit too quick, so we're going to go in a bit slower, slow it down over a longer period. We're going to have a very, very clear apex here, and don't try and go all the way wide on the exit. We're going to sacrifice a little bit of exit speed for slightly less distance. You're going to travel less distance, and it's going to mean you're going to get back over to this side a bit easier, and the overall average speed will be slightly quicker. Having said all of those things, this is not a corner you're losing that much time on compared to others. You're only really losing a couple of tenths of a second. So you said you're rubbish, but actually you weren't that far off, and this wasn't the best you did that corner. So we spent a lot of time talking about one of the corners you're doing pretty blooming well.
Yeah, but this has explained a lot more things that I didn't understand before. So this is really helpful.
Okay, well, definitely never be afraid to ask those questions, because they are like really good questions, like quite, high concept questions. Let's just go to another bit of low hanging fruit. This is one that I saw it when you were driving. This is an easy fix, so this is just going to gain you a bit of lap time on your next run. Because I'm not going to go through the whole lap, because it's just way too much to think about. I'd like you to at least be able to focus on a couple of little things. This, though, the penultimate corner. So second to last turn, let's go on your onboard. So we'll just watch it. We'll go on your best lap. This is me, so I'm looking at the wrong one. So this one here, when it loads, we'll just zoom to the last corner, or second to last corner. Right, here. Okay, so this is great where your car is, using this bit of extra asphalt here. So as long as you don't go too far across that, you shouldn't get an off track. But I can hear, or I could hear at the time, there was quite a big lift off the throttle. And I think on the data, it shows that too. Yeah, so this is where we are. Yeah. You can see on the map coming into there, you've got a pretty big lift. We get down to 0%, and then you're smoothly back on. By the way, that's nice and smooth. You're getting back on the throttle nicely. But that corner should be easily flat out. So without even thinking about it, it should just go through flat. So when the tyres are warm, so like lap 2, 3 onwards, don't even think about it. Just turn in, and it should just go through there full throttle. If it doesn't, we'll figure out why it isn't, and that'll only be because of the point at which you're turning in. But at the moment, your turning point's good. So the line you're taking is great. It's just you're lifting when you probably don't need to lift. So that's going to be a little bit of free lap time. Not the end of the world. What is it? So 2.6, and by here, it's only like maybe 3 tenths, 2 or 3 tenths. But you'll get it for free. That's free lap time, because it's a no-brainer corner. Once you've proven to yourself it'll go through there. So
yeah.
So things to change then on this next run. So we'll go do another run now. Turn 1, just get it slowed a bit more, and just make a. Don't worry about having a longish apex, or medium. I'd call it medium, didn't I? You can be on the inside for a period of time. Don't feel like you have to kiss it and kind of then run wide. You can stay there, taking advantage of that nice short line through there. And on the exit, try not to go all the way wide if you can help it. But don't worry if you don't completely perfect it. The main thing is on outside, very clearly inside, and then smoothly running wide. The big winner is going to be this next one. This is going to be where we gain a big chunk of time. And you can see on the delta, so down here on the bottom left of the data screen, this is your time delta versus me, and it's a very obvious step just there. We go from half a second to 1.2 seconds. So there's 7 tenths just in that one turn. And it's going to be easy lap time when you nail it. So I basically just want to see you turn in earlier and carry a bit more speed through the middle. And if that forces you to run wide, we're going to work out why. Because it's not forcing me to run wide. So we'll kind of deal with that
learn how to
separately.
correct.
Yeah, we'll figure out
how to
why.
correct in the corner.
Yeah, we'll see why it's running wide if it runs wide. But that's it. You can also get away with 1 gear higher. So don't go down to first gear. Keep it in second gear through that one. By going quicker, you'll probably naturally be 1 gear higher anyway. So that's it. And then full throttle through the penultimate corner. Those are the only things I want you to change. And let's go do another little run. Let's go for it.
Great.
I appreciate it's going to take a lap or so just to get the tyre temperature back up. I'm sorry I don't have a better method of going, right, just start from, you know, full speed with warm tyres. I just, I don't have a...
I can't expect you to have that. Can you see my iRacing?
Yeah, I've got you on iRacing again.
Okay.
Let's do it. How long did you say you've been using iRacing?
Like a year-ish, but it's off and on. And it's really just me guessing, so...
And that was with no, like, real-world track days or karting?
No, I have no idea what I'm doing at all. This is 100%
so starting from
things
scratch,
I figured out by driving around.
Cool, okay, well, you've done really, really well. You've done really well considering that. That's great.
Okay, well, that was stupid. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, don't worry. Damage it off, so it'll just fix itself. So just carry on, it's fine.
My bad.
It should fix itself, anyway.
I do. So is it really just take it very easy on outlaps and you find it to be not a problem?
No, because by taking it really easy on the outlap, you have less tyre temperature on your first flying lap. So a better way to put it would be...
on an outlap, then?
Sorry, say that again?
So on an outlap, are you just moving your braking points back? I mean, I know that's a simplistic explanation.
No, it's a very, very valid question. I'm driving as quick as I can for the amount of grip level that those tyres are giving me in that condition. So you're right, it means braking earlier, expecting a lower minimum speed at the apexes, just not like super, super slow, accelerating a little bit more smoothly on the exits, and just being even more smooth and progressive with my inputs, like my steering input in particular. So it's basically just a slightly gentler version of when you're driving fast. But I try and go as quick as I can get away with without scrubbing the tyres unnecessarily. So I don't want it to slide. I don't want to build tyre temperature by sliding, because then you actually will spike the tyre temperature, you'll overheat them, and you'll wear them faster, and then they won't be as good when you actually...
don't do any of the things I just did in the last 4 corners. Okay, got it.
Yeah, like don't deliberately scrub them and slide around, but you bring them up to temperature as nicely as you can, but without leaving very much on the table, without like underdriving it dramatically.
Okay. That makes sense. Oh, I broke too hard. Okay.
Yeah, don't worry. It's fine. It's fine. You're going to need to do that to get a feel for it. But if the car ever does what you tell it to too easily, you know you probably could have been going quicker at that point.
Yeah.
But there's, you know, these kind of things, they're going to take a while to sink in, because your feedback loop of realizing I'm doing something too much, I'm going in too quick, or I mean, look at the delta you just gained there. Like, you just went like 8 or 9 tenths quicker, but just by chucking it in faster. So good job. Yeah, your feedback loop will take a while to sharpen up. Like okay, the car has gone in too quick. What do I need to do about that? Doing it and then trying again. That little process we want it to be as quick as possible. Yes. So you're assessing what the car's doing over and over and over and over, multiple times per second, and making adjustments. But you can't have that until you've done it. You know, you need to get there first. You have to go through the process of knowing that's a thing you need to do, and then practicing it, and it just gets that feedback loop I'm on about just tightens up over time. But if you don't know it's a thing you're supposed to be doing, then you can't ever start on that kind of little journey.
Okay. Yeah, I'm overdriving the car now, but thank you.
But that's a really good example, though. So the car was running wide. I could see that was running wide quite early, and my driving brain was telling me to get off the gas because I want to fix it as soon as possible. But you either realised too late, or you didn't know that there was something you could do about it earlier. So that's the kind of thing that we're going to nail, and that'll just make you so much quicker. But we haven't spoken about that yet, exit, so we'll do that in a bit. Hey, you did it there, though. You saw you were running wide, you lifted, it fixed it. That's it. Like, that's it, in simple terms. Realising
something... This is an incredibly helpful mindset thing. Thank you.
Yeah, no, nobody talks about this, but it's what all race drivers go through, probably with no one ever telling them it. But obviously that's the long way around. You know, they've then got to figure out, oh yeah, that's the thing I should do. So already you're now realizing that just because you're understeering wide doesn't mean you have to keep understeering wide. The sooner you realize it and implement a fix, which is normally lifting, the sooner you can get back on the gas and therefore not run wide. So yeah, that's really good. I saw you doing it. What a lot of people will do to begin with, though, and I think you'll probably say you're one of these, is you don't change it until you've hit the grass or until you get to the edge, and then you're kind of like resigned to the fact that we're going wide. I guess we just have to keep going wide until you run out of space. But that obviously isn't the case. You can fix it at any point.
It's actually really helpful.
That's the same with understeer, with oversteer, with anything the car does you don't want it to do. You can fix it as soon as you can see it. Right, so from now on, that corner's going to be flat out.
Yeah, I lifted slightly and I put it back down. I got you.
Yeah, that's fine.
My
That's
bad.
fine. That's just muscle memory. It's just force of habit. So on the next lap through that corner, I'll try and remind you before you get there. Yeah, flat out. Same line, but just flat out.
Back on the throttle too early.
Yeah, that's fine. No problem. We'll talk about we'll go into more and more detail each time, but it's good that you're kind of recognizing what's happening. And again, you realise quite early this is understeering a bit, and you stayed off the gas until it stopped understeering, and then got back on. So that's good. That line into there is so much better. So much better.
All right, and as long as I actually remember to get down to second, it'll be a lot faster.
Yeah, exactly. You got it.
Yeah. All right. I appreciate you. This is very helpful. Thank you.
No, you're doing a great job. This is good. It's hard to break like a habit as well, you know, especially when you're doing it whilst I'm talking to you. So. Nice.
Grass.
You saved that from a grassy moment there. That could have gone a lot worse. So flat out through this corner this time. It's quite an early turn in to do that, but yeah, you got it. Easy peasy. Yeah. It just means you arrive at the last corner way faster. So you probably just have to account for that and just brake slightly earlier for that one. But
yeah,
but that's fine. That's an easy fix. This is good to watch though. Nice. So I can see through that long corner, and long corners are really good for seeing this in action. You're manipulating what the car's doing several times in one corner, which is good. And second gear was way better there, and you did a shorter line, so good stuff. This is nice. Pretty consistent too.
I've genuinely never considered changing how the car can move in the middle of the corner.
Yeah, people treat a corner as a corner, but in reality, it is it's an infinitely, you can break it into infinitely small segments. The segments you break it into are only limited by your driving feedback loop and how quickly you can actually recognize what's happening with the car. How many times you can assess what is currently happening versus what you want to be happening. You need to know what it is you're aiming for and then compare what's actually happening to that and make it happen. Figure out why it's not doing what you want it to do. Sorry, I'm distracting you by talking.
No. You're fine. You're not distracting me. I was attempting to do something new and it didn't work.
That's fine.
That's all it was. Your explanation is incredibly helpful.
Okay, good. The difficulty is, just because you understand an explanation or like you get the concept, you can't just flick a switch and just do it. But at least you know what. Yeah, at least you know what you're aiming for. Like at least you know there's this thing that you can do. So yeah, we'll talk about it in all sorts of situations and other corners in a minute, but. How much going through there now does it feel like, why was I not just already doing that? Like, look how green the delta goes. When you just go in earlier, you're travelling quicker, taking a shorter line, the delta bar goes green. It's like, it looks obvious and it's easy for you as well now. It's not even like it's hard. Like, you're managing it completely easily.
Thank you. That's really helpful.
So we haven't really spoken about any of these corners, so we'll have a look at these in a minute.
Yeah, these could also see some obvious improvement. But
obviously the idea of this session, like a first session, isn't to make you the champion of Okayama. It's just to kind of get a feel. Oh yeah, again, full throttle through here. Don't lift at all.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, the idea is just to have a starting point and like start digging into it. But right, okay, so
you've just made me aware of the fact that I can sort of slide the fronts in a way that's actually beneficial. Yeah. And then that's going to allow me to actually just work on this better.
Yeah, you can find the limit with the front and then work to that limit, but by lifting, it'll turn better. By getting on the power, it's gonna, as long as you're not spinning the rear wheels, by getting on the power, you're taking weight off the front. It'll probably understeer a bit. Obviously, if you're already sliding the rear, then getting on the power will make it oversteer. So that is very, very, so like that. So exactly like that. So because the weight transfer on the entry started the rear sliding, getting on the power actually made that slide more. But in a different situation, if it's understeering, getting on the power will probably make it understeer more. So there's not even a hard and fast rule for more power equals. Like more power equals different things in different situations. And you've just experienced one of them.
Yeah, no, it's actually it's good.
But all these things we're talking about are tools. These are all tools that you've got that you might not have known you had before. Like forcing the weight transfer, having that lift in the middle of the corner, or if necessary, a touch of the brake, like a nudge of the brakes will really make it turn better if you need it. So those are tools in your driving toolbox you can start employing. So let's do one more lap after this one, and then we'll just look at a couple of other corners as well, just to kind of see some different corner types. Because the 90-degree ones in the middle of the lap are a little bit different to what we've been looking at.
A little much.
Nice. Okay, so this is quite a good lesson. So everything was going really well, and then the car went really, really wide. So without me telling you, like, what could you have done differently so that it went well on the entry but still went well on the exit? Like, what could you have done differently?
I need to take my foot off the throttle slightly and brake just a little bit to shift the weight back, and then I could have made the corner.
Yeah, exactly.
I think.
You got on the gas a little bit too soon, or a bit too hard too soon, and kind of kept it there.
Yeah.
So yeah, you didn't realise that I'm about to run wide. You didn't kind of preempt it early enough. So the earlier you can predict where you're about to end up, the quicker you'll fix it as well. But you knew it. Like, as it happened, you were like, oh, I know what's happened here. But yeah, obviously, if you sensed it earlier, you'd fix it earlier. So that's fine. Nice. Really good job with the last corner there. So those final couple of corners look good on this lap. So we'll just stop the car anywhere after the finish line again, and we'll hop out and grab the data from that one. I know that wasn't your quickest lap of the session, but
No, it's fine.
But you did get your quickest lap earlier on, so you're in the slightly lower 47s. But like I said, these things are going to take time. Quite often, when people change to doing a better technique, they go slower until they maximise that better technique, and so that's just one of those things. But yeah, good job, man. That's really good. So let's just look at that last lap. I know there were places where you went way better on other laps, but let's just use the last one as a bit of
That's fine.
A recent reference, and then we'll go into some of the middle corners as like our next thing to look at. Right, so turn one, you went on the line I wanted you to, so you got here. This is all looking good at this point. And then there was this point, like, from here where the car just, like, left the apex. It just didn't want to stay there. And I think, we'll look at the data in a minute, but I think this is because we actually overslowed it a bit. So I think we slowed down a bit too much. And that then meant you were prompted to get on the power too soon. In fact, I know you can't hear it, but sounds to me like you're already on the power by this point. Let's just get the data so I know for sure.
Yeah, I slammed on the brakes every time on that corner way too early. Or actually not too early, but too hard.
Yeah, okay. So you're probably still doing that thing where you're braking hard, but that means you get all the braking out of the way a bit too quickly, and then you've got no weight on the nose when you actually need weight on the nose. So spreading it out a bit means you've still got weight on the nose right at the point you need to stay tight. So you could be going quicker than you were going there, but it still wouldn't run wide. Where, here, maybe you could be going slightly faster than this, but it wouldn't be going wide. Having said that, 109k, I've got a feeling I was 10 kilometers an hour slower. So maybe it's because you're just going slightly too quick. But whatever it was, the throttle was making you go wide. So we'll just try and stay tighter slightly longer there. But right, let me just grab the data. We're looking at the last lap. Again, I know it's not your best lap, but I just want to see what I'm looking at on the screen here. So we're going to add it to that analysis. I'm going to change the color of it. Oh, that's interesting. Sometimes Garage 61 does this. It's deleted the lap we were looking at before, I think because it's been too long since we looked back at it. So I'll bring the one in we were looking at a minute ago, just so we can compare, what you changed, if it looks any different. It's supposed to stay there, but it just lost it. So last time we were looking at that 47613, weren't we? That was the lap we looked at. Add it to that. And just for consistency, we'll keep my one blue. Your 47.6 will make red. I know the 48 is slower than that, but I think you probably did some bits way better. We'll make that bright green so it's an obvious difference, and then we can see. Yeah, okay, so turn one. I said it looks like maybe you went through the middle a bit too fast. Definitely did. So you did attempt it 10 kilometers an hour quicker than me. That's weird. It just changed colour on its own. It decided to change back to blue on its own. Come on, go green. Go green, Soft. What are you doing? That's really funny. There we go.
Oh, man.
Weird. Yeah, I said it looks like you probably slowed down a bit too soon and then accelerated
too early, and then I compensated by,
Exactly. So right here, you're definitely going too slow on the green line, and then you're back on the throttle way before I am, which then speeds you up to an unrealistically high speed in the middle, and then you have to slow again. And this is the first time we've seen the W shape in your speed trace. You'll probably hear me talk about this loads. If we do more sessions, the W shape in the speed trace is something we try and avoid, because it means you've had like 2 minimum speeds for one corner, and that probably means you were going slower than you should have been going. So you've got like a minimum speed here, a little raise, and then another minimum speed here. So ideally we want it to go down to a point and then back up again. So yeah, anyway, that's what it looked like. That's what we saw, and that makes sense. and that's why it carries on, goes wide. But look, this bit was good. Your line on the way in was great. So if you'd done that line at my speed, then it wouldn't have gone deep. So you'd have had the benefit of the short entry and the benefit of the speed.
What's your braking point at this corner? Just out of curiosity.
Good question. Let's have a look. So it's there if you look at the data, but let's look at you can see it on the screen when if I go here, you'll see it on my little bar at the bottom when it loads. So it's roughly here. So let's just do that in slow mo. So if I go on the cockpit, well before that white line, but let's go super slow.
I got you.
So I've gone past the 100 meter board.
Yeah. It's that white marker right there when it exits your screen. Yeah. I got you.
And you see, I'm still on the brakes here because I've not braked that hard. And I'm still on the brakes.
Yeah.
I'm still on the brakes. And now I'm balancing the brake and the throttle, and now we're on the throttle. So it's kind of, the brakes continue all the way up to the apex. And if they don't, if you don't need to, you probably brake too early or too hard. That's like a good telltale sign. So anyway, there we go. That's that one. But let's look at the main event, which was the corner at the bottom here. This is where we were looking for a big improvement, and it is dramatically different. It's not perfect yet. We've got a W shape, but look how much better it is than the red. Like, way better. You knew it because you saw it on your Delta anyway. But now, the entry is basically perfect. So from here to here, you're there. Like, really good. So look at how your speed matches mine. You're slowing down at the same rate as me. You're braking about the same hardness as me because your speed line is dropping at the same angle. And up to here, this is great. So let's just pause it like right there. I'm going to zoom in on where that is. And then what goes wrong? We spoke about this at the time. What goes wrong is the throttle starts to come in there. So you see I have a little tiny blip of the throttle, but that's more a stabilization thing as I go down the gears. Whereas you're getting back on, you're like, this feels a bit slow. I could probably get on the gas. And your green line on the GPS tray shows that was not the case. You were incorrect. You couldn't get on the gas without running wide out there. So you've actually now attempted a 10 kilometre an hour. Hey, it's the same as turn 1. 10 kilometres an hour faster than I was attempting through the middle of the corner. So you just get a bit greedy, basically. Now you're like, hey, I like this limit stuff. This is cool. And it's just gone too far. So that's all. So do everything the same. Don't be too greedy on when you get on the power. Like, let it rotate a bit further into the corner, then get on the power, and then it'll be fine. That's it. That's all it was. Obviously, when you start to get a little bit wide, you then get on the dirt and on the marbles, and it goes wider and wider and wider and wider, and it exacerbates itself. And then you've had to lift right at the point you definitely want to be full throttle because you're emerging onto a long straight. You've had a big lift just there. So, but even with all that said, you're still way faster than before through there. So good job. Like, it's way better. So that's just great. It's just a really, really good illustration. And then here. The penultimate corner, full throttle. Awesome. Flat line at the top. No time loss. Great stuff. So that's good. The three things we spoke about, you've at the very least done some of it, and in other cases, like, perfected it. So that's really good. So why don't we take a look at some corners in the middle of the lap? So we've got like 10 minutes. I don't normally stick strictly to like our session lengths because I'd rather we finished the stuff we're talking about than we like specifically ended. The only reason I can't go over too much today is because I've got another session coming up after. But I've definitely got 10-minute leeway. So let's just look at these middle ones. So here. So we're now talking about very, very different looking corners here. We've got roughly 90 degree. They're not exactly, one's slightly less, probably one's slightly more, but shorter apexes, you'd call this. You're kissing it and then running wide because the corner isn't as long. Your line into here, looking pretty damn good to me. Like, outside, inside, outside, as you'd expect. I like that. So why is your speed lower? Why are you 15 kilometers an hour slower than me through the middle? It's mainly a harder brake. And you did it with your previous run, you did it with this run as well. So the red and the green trace are basically doing the same. If I just zoom into this one corner, you can see how hard you're pressing the pedal there. Whereas mine is a very, very different braking prospect here. I'm leaning on the brakes just to take the edge off, but it's turning in fine. just with that amount of brakes. So I don't need any more, basically. I've just assessed, well, if it goes in at that speed with that amount of brake, why I don't need to brake anymore. It's fine, it did it. It might need a little bit more, it might need to be lifted for longer. In fact, for sure, this is where you can see a big difference. So you've braked harder, and you're also on the power way earlier than me. I'm not back on the power till here. But the reason I'm not is because I couldn't be. Like, if I got on the gas, I'd run too wide because I'm on the limit, exactly. So whereas you've slowed it down and you're trying to get back up to the limit, I've never left it. I'm staying there. So you're doing the right thing by going, this feels a bit slow, I should get back on the power. But obviously a better thing would be to never have to, you know, re-accelerate back up to that limit. We could just already be there. So that's my aim for you in this next one, is to maintain a higher minimum speed through here by lifting at the same point as you currently are, but staying lifted for longer and doing a gentler, long brake. So actually, it's a similar length to what you did on the red one. It's kind of you actually did quite a trail brake with the green, so that's good. Like, you're keeping the weight on the nose, but we don't want the big spike at the beginning. This is one of the reasons I asked you about your pedal pressure at the start, because I have a really stiff brake pedal, and they're really expensive hydraulic brakes that require a lot of force to move it at all, which makes it very, very easy to judge pressing it a teeny bit, because I have to really push hard to get any more than that anyway. If you've got a softer pedal, obviously it's going to be harder to judge that little nudge on the brakes, because it just goes more. It doesn't matter what you do. If you breathe on it, it's going to go up to a spike. So you might have to be a bit more conscious of that, but definitely less braking intensity than you were before. Stay off the brakes for longer, because you're going to have... Sorry, stay off the gas for longer, because you're going to have to. Otherwise, it'll push you off the track. But if you easily make the corner, you could have gone quicker, so try it faster. And basically, keep going through that faster and faster until you can't stay on the track. That's really the aim. And then the next one, way less through here. You're way closer to the limit through this one, but I think you've been turning in a little bit early. Let's have a look. It's not terrible. Looking at the GPS, it's not bad. You were halfway between your previous run and me on your last lap. If we go on your onboard, let's just look at... This was the last lap. Come on, video. Sometimes the replays do take a while. Right, here we go. So, we're looking at this one here. This, by the way, is perfect. Where the car is here is bang on. Most people don't go this wide, but this is great. Let's go on your cockpit view. Yeah, I think we turn in a little bit early, and you can see that because if I go on slow-mo and get rid of the this bottom bar, you start to turn in. This is maybe a bit too slow-mo. You start to turn in here, and then you have to reduce the steering angle. You're like, oh, that's a little bit too much. You turn again, and then it goes straight to the grass. Oh, I've just clicked on the wrong view. There we go. It goes straight to the grass. It basically, you had to back out of the turn a little bit. You turned in, and then you had to go, oh, maybe not that much, and then again. So we'll go fractionally later, but not much. We're talking like a meter, half a meter, like not a lot. You're nearly perfect with the line there. It's like very, very close. And the speed, again, your speed at this point is really similar to me. But then the minimum just comes slightly later and you have to slow it down a little bit more. And I think that's mainly because you turned it in a tiny bit earlier. You had a slightly tighter angle. When you got to the inside, you still had more of the corner to do than I had. And you just couldn't physically carry much more speed. So this second one is more about just a very slightly later turn. It'll be easier to see from this, actually. So... God, I tell you what, it's not much. It's really not much. You know what? It might just be that by getting on the power slightly earlier, that stops you getting to the inside too soon. You'll naturally reach the inside slightly later if you're slightly more on the limit. So I'll just have a look at mine just to compare, because that looks like what I'm aiming at, where you kind of skim this curb. Let's just see. Before I don't want to tell you a thing unless I'm certain it's the right thing. Let's just see. So you were kind of skimming the edge of that curb that's off the track. Let's have a look. Okay, it is slightly later.
Slightly wider.
Slightly. That's all it is, though. Just a fraction. And that means when I get to the inside, I can get on the power and stay there. Boom. And that just keeps the minimum slightly higher. That's all. It doesn't go... Yeah, you were like kind of a bit of a shallow angle here, just about touching the grass, whereas my car is a little bit more facing where I want it to go. I'm not having to fight it as much. Okay, so main thing then is going to be faster through this one. This is the main one. That's it. I don't really need to say much more than that. Just go into the first 90-degree corner slightly faster. We don't... Let's
brake. Don't spike the brakes. Brake very small.
Very small, but stay off the gas if it's going to push wide. We want you to have to stay off the gas. I want you to be forced to stay off the power because you're going so fast that you absolutely have to stay off until like here. You know, I'm back on it at this point, and I'm full throttle by there. But yeah, there we go. That's it. Let's do it. Oh, and do all the other stuff perfect too, but in particular, we're just looking at that corner.
All right. Sounds good.
There's definitely not enough time in a 1 hour session or an hour and a half session like this to kind of digest all this stuff and nail it. This is... But I just want you to finish the session knowing what you're aiming at. So then when
successfully given me the exact thing I was looking for, which is some amount of direction.
Awesome.
So thank you.
Right, so we're going to get up to speed as quick as you possibly can, but without sliding very much.
Yep,
if you
without you're doing that. Yeah.
There you go.
Okay,
that's
sorry.
Right. That's fine.
You're in a rush. I apologize.
No, not a problem.
Right, let me go.
Don't be silly. It's just you now know that the car just can't take that speed on cold tyres into that corner. It'll be able to in about a lap, but just not yet. And don't worry, I'm not in a rush. I've got a little bit of buffer time, so that's fine. I've still got...
is that telemetry? Am I able to use the Garage 61 telemetry data? Am I able to like log and look at that on my own, or does that not work?
Yep, you sure are. And I'll show you how after this session. You can look at the data we've been looking at already, as in the saved analysis that we've been doing. You can look back at that, and we're going to make some notes on that before we finish. So you can go back, you can read the notes I'm about to make. You can zoom in, you can do all the stuff I'm doing. The only thing you can't do is edit it, because I'll lock it so you don't change something by mistake. But you can make your own analysis as many times as you want. You can look at any of the laps of anyone in our team. So any of my other coaching drivers, you can go look at their data. You can look at all my data, and I'll show you how you do all that. And obviously, you can always ask me. If you can't remember, just come on the Discord server and ask me.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So the people in that Discord are not all necessarily currently having sessions with me, but once you've done one, you're just in. So you're in like forever. So you've got access to that like resource for as long as you want it.
Okay.
A lot of the guys in that server, in that Discord server, met each other in that server, and they now all do loads of little team races together. They're very friendly and nice guys, so they're doing the Daytona 24 hours together this weekend, and they all help each other out, share setups, they kind of coach each other a bit. It's really sweet to see. It's quite nice. And then they occasionally like ask me for input in the channel there. It's good.
It's actually really nice. It's good you were able to bring people together.
Yeah, everyone's been... It's just because they've all been so nice, to be honest.
Oh, nah, we're not on... Okay, we're not going to overcompensate.
So I'm going to suggest getting up to the next gear before you turn into that corner. So you can drive through the first 90-degree corner, like, with a little bit of a higher speed. I'm going to check the data just to check exactly when I'm changeable.
Could you say that to me one more time? I apologize.
No, that's fine. No, I'm just looking right now, actually. Let me just zoom in. Yes, okay, I didn't notice this when we looked at the data. You're staying in first gear for the first 90-degree left, I'm getting up to second gear before I turn in. So it's a slight short shift. You're not on the rev limiter, so you don't technically need second gear, but it'll make the car much more stable through the middle. It'll allow you to carry a higher speed. So make sure you've changed to second before you turn in to that first 90-degree left.
Okay. All right, got it.
Nice. That was good to watch, and the delta's looking good as well.
A little too much speed going into that second corner.
Yep, yep. But you recognised it, so well done, and you've not lost a lot.
Ah, turn in earlier.
Nicely held. I think we maybe tried to go in a bit too quick actually that time, only slightly, but you held on well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. You're doing great. What's always a clue of I might have gone in a bit too quick is if the delta goes really green really fast. That's normally a clue. Oh, that might have been a bit too fast on the entry. Okay, so this time get up to second gear before you turn in. And we're going to turn in a little bit earlier next time.
Got it.
I mean, sorry,
Too much.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, we're going to turn in a bit earlier for the first 90-degree left.
No. I knew what you meant. I just was thinking about that, and then yeah, just being stupid.
No problem. No, don't worry. Really nice through there. Hey, man, what a kick-ass final sector. That was great. That was really, really good. Okay, so this time, we want to arrive at the apex quicker here, but still be braking when you get there to keep the weight on the nose. And then it'll rotate when you need it.
Oh, yep.
That's okay.
Okay.
No, don't worry. I was actually confusing things by telling you what to do in real time. But, yeah, we want to be still having to brake just as you arrive at the apex.
Yeah, so the weight's still on the front end.
Exactly.
Okay.
And don't feel like you have to immediately get back on the gas if you think you're about to run wide. You can always just assess the situation, make sure you're definitely rotating enough, and then introduce the throttle.
I promise you I will practice this after the session and figure this out.
Fine. No,
I will get this down.
I'm just trying to make sure I tell you the maximum I can in the time allotted.
I really appreciate that. Alright, we can call it after this lap. I think I understand. And I just have to practice. Oh, man, I should have broken, which I didn't do.
Yep, don't worry, it's fine. So you got up to second, you just turned in really late. So you've got to do quite an early turn in.
What I'm doing is I feel like I short shifting feels wrong. So I was like, okay, well we got to get to second and then we can turn, but
got it.
That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, no, I understand. So it will feel like less of a short shift when we start getting a better exit to the hairpin. So that's the last thing I want to leave you with is that hairpin at the end of the really long straight. In fact, carry on for the next lap because I want to talk to you about it when you get there. The hairpin at the end of that long straight, we want to stay tighter for longer. So you're exiting the apex a bit too soon out of that hairpin at the end of the long straight. And that's making you slightly slower when you get to the 90-degree corner. So we'll fix that.
Too hard, that's fine. Get it better next time.
Yeah, you'll go the wrong side. You know, you'll go a bit too slow, a bit too fast, a bit too slow, until you find that happy medium, and then you'll dance on the limit every time. You can't shortcut this. There is a mandatory practice period before it becomes natural. So don't worry, you're not doing anything wrong or that anyone else hasn't done. And well done there, man. Look, the exit was good, and now it's you kind of matched your best ever exit there. That was decent. Okay, so this time, in this hairpin, don't get back on the gas until I tell you to. So, do the same entry, get it nice and tight to the inside, and then get on the power, like, as you're exiting. So, yeah, sorry, I'm watching a delayed stream, obviously, aren't I? So that's probably not ideal.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
But yeah, basically we want to stay as tight as possible for as long as possible around that hairpin, because it's so tight. Staying tight means you're doing a ridiculously short distance compared to going wider. And it also means you're facing out of the corner earlier, which means you get to full throttle earlier. I'll show you it on the data because it'll make loads of sense.
All right.
But, okay, right, cool. So you can see my screen again. Let me just grab one of those last laps. I'm going to grab your penultimate one. This one. Here we go. Let me just zoom to that. Let's have a little look. Yeah, right. So, on the face of it, what you're doing here looks pretty good, right? So if this corner was in isolation, if there was nothing before it or after it, can you see my screen, by the way?
Yes.
So, if we just look at the shape of this hairpin, and you don't know what's down here, and you don't know what's over here, you've just got a picture of a hairpin here. The line you're about to do here is probably what most people would draw, or most people who know what a racing line is, would draw on a piece of paper. So you go outside, inside in the middle, outside. That looks geometrically perfect, I'd say. Unfortunately, corners are not taken in isolation, and what you've got next is a really short straight. So there's not that much benefit to doing this kind of wide line and ending up all the way over here. If the next corner was a right-hander, I'd say that's probably perfect because you're already on the correct side of the track. But the fact you now have to transition across means that there's extra distance to cover, and because going from here all the way out to here means you're turning for a longer period, it also means you don't get to just get on the power hard in kind of like a straight line. I'm now hoping that what I'm about to show you of my lap looks different to that. In fact, I could probably just look at the data, but I'll show you on the replay before we get there. Because this is going to be worth a bucket load of time if you perfect it. This is such a weird view. It's like micro machines. Right, let's see. Am I going to do this any differently? Right, so I've definitely gone in a little bit earlier. I've gone in slightly more shallow here, so I'm like diving to the inside. I'm staying tight. I'm staying tight. Yeah, I'm staying tight. You see, that's where my exit goes to. So to the middle. I've covered way fewer meters, and I bet I got to full throttle earlier. Because I'm like, just there. You see, that's how early.
You stopped braking at a different place in the corner, so you could get on the throttle earlier, so you didn't have to go as deep. Yeah, it makes sense.
And because I haven't started running wide here, like you're on the throttle already here, I think. See how I'm still up, and now I'm gently getting back on. So you're on the throttle back here, and that pushes you wide by this point here, where my car is still... That's a bit too far away to see. But my car's still quite tight here. You're already starting to go wide. And so by getting on the power, it really pushes you wide. But because I've waited just momentarily longer to get on the power, when I get on the power, it doesn't go wide, it stays tight, and I'm already on the right-hand side for this one. And that means I've got plenty of time. I'm like, the car is straight well in good time to like aim into this next corner. I'm not having to go right, left, where your car's having to make this transition across. So you're actually having to turn a bit more to get it into this corner easily. So anyway, that's going to be a bit of additional lap time. I'm just going to grab the data from that last run. We'll make some notes on your last run there. So here we go. So it was, I guess it's this. Let's take this lap, because you've got a purple final sector, and it was, I think, yeah, I know you've got an off track, but it was your fastest lap of the day. So let's just take that one anyway. I don't really care about off tracks if they don't actually give you an advantage. So let's take that one, add it to our most recent analysis, and let's get rid of the things we don't care about. So we'll get rid of that one. And we'll get rid of this one too. So we'll just do you versus me, blue versus red. We'll keep it simple. So this is your best lap versus mine. Okay, so let's just make notes through the lap. But just before we get there, we were just looking at this hairpin. So let's just particularly look at that. Yeah, you can see on the GPS there that actually our turn-in's similar. We're kind of similarly tracking into here. But it's from here onwards that there's a difference. So... yeah, when we zoom in to that corner, this is the culprit. You see your throttle just here? Everything's fine. And then here, you get up to 20% throttle. And you're still at 20% throttle. And now you're going too quick to stay tight. And then you have to get off the throttle because you know you're about to run wide. And then you get to full throttle much later. So although I'm waiting longer to get to the power, I get to full power way earlier, and I'm doing a shorter distance. So that's where the compromise comes in. That's why it's like slightly more beneficial to do it that way. That's the stuff we were just talking about. Anyway, right, let's do the full lap. Let's just do some notes. Right, turn 1. This is a much better braking point than you were doing before, and much better braking shape. So this is a massive improvement. Like, so this is how we make notes. So I know this is the first time you're seeing this. Braking and early entry. Sorry about my slow typing. Into turn 1 is
no problem.
Is drastically improved. I can't type. There we go. So that's a green tick, but what's to me like a yellow is this. So the thing we're doing slightly wrong is trying to carry too much speed through the middle. So the final area for improvement here is slightly slower minimum speed. So you can get on the power harder and earlier without it trying to run wide, without running wide. Because everything's good, it's just this, you see how your minimum is quite a long minimum speed? You stay at 105, 105, 105, 106, 105. You're doing that kind of same speed as the car gets wider and wider and wider and wider. Whereas I'm getting down to my minimum here, and from that point onwards, we're accelerating out of the corner, facing where I want it to go, and it doesn't go too wide. So we're going to slow it down to a slower minimum, but that will then buy you the option or the ability to get onto full power earlier. This is basically exactly what we were just talking about with the hairpin, just in a different corner. So we're going to be slower in the middle rather than trying to get on the power too early, but that's going to give you a much better exit and an overall neater, tighter, shorter line. So that's that. Right, next corner. Let's go through here. I think you probably felt it on this one, but you are going way faster than me through the middle, which then obviously means you're much slower on the exit. So we haven't really spoken about this corner, but essentially slightly, well actually not even slightly, much slower minimum speed to allow a neat, clean exit and earlier full throttle. As happens a lot of the time, a delayed throttle or a slower speed in the middle means when you get on the throttle, like here, you stay on it. You don't have to get on and then get back off. This is not a hard and fast rule, but it's something that always stuck with me. Jackie Stewart, I don't know what your Formula One relationship is and how Formula One knowledgeable you are, but Jackie, you probably know Jackie Stewart was a Formula One world champion. He said when teaching someone how to drive, you should never get on the throttle until you know you're not going to have to get back off the throttle. It's not actually a hard and fast rule, but it's a pretty good general concept. You don't want to have to get on and then go, oh shit, back off, because then your exit speed's going to be harmed, and that's what happened here. Right, next corner here. This is just so much better. Look at how your trace looks compared to my trace now. Like, compared to what we were doing earlier, it's just night and day. So I'm actually going to give you a green tick for this because there's not much more you could be doing better there. Almost everything about this corner is close to ideal. So that's great. Look at your braking shape. The only thing that's wrong, which is what we've seen, this is now a trend building. You tried to get on the power a bit too soon. It pushed you wide. Yeah. It meant you couldn't get to full throttle as soon. So actually that little bit of patience in the mid corner, that's what's going to help you. Because right up to here, you're looking great. And then it pushes you wide. So that's it. So that's it. That's the only thing to change there. Right.
Be patient.
Then, hairpin at the end of the straight. There's our W shape again. We're a bit too slow in. We then go, oh shit, I'm going a bit too slow. I'll get on the power in the middle. And then that means we have to wait on the power. This is the same story. Identical story. So you can see the theme building here. If we go in slightly faster but get down to a slower minimum in the middle and be patient on the gas, when you get on the power, you'll be harder on the power doing a shorter distance. So slightly faster entry speed required, but not much. But slightly slower mid-corner speed.
All right, Phil, 15 minutes left. That's 15 minutes.
To allow an earlier and sustained full throttle on exit. This software is awesome, by the way. I love how it lets us make these notes, and you can go back and look at them.
This is great, right. Yeah.
So now, first 90-degree left, way better. So, you know, we're not perfect, but your minimum speed is, like, way better. Like, way, way better. The only negative, look at what's happened. Early throttle, leading to running wide on the exit, and a later full throttle. So, exactly the same story. So, I'm just going to write same story, because it's going to be exactly the same thing again. So, your entry speed looks good, but you were too tempted to start picking up the power early. I mean, also, we ran a bit wide. We ran a bit wide, so let's just make that note too. Earlier turn will also help.
Yeah, I mean, that'll be easier if I do the turn before that correctly.
Yeah, exactly. Then this one, the next one, went slightly wrong on that lap. So it's looking good on the way in. Same as we said before, but more exaggerated. Look, you've gone in really early that time, and that's meant the corner is just too tight. So we're going to just say delay turn-in. Too many spaces. There we go. That's it. That's all you need to do. That's literally it. Just slightly later turn in and make a nice clear apex here, and it'll just be... It won't push you as wide. You won't have to delay the throttle just here. So that's that. Easy. We didn't really talk about these two hairpins at all. We've not gone into them at all. But I reckon you could probably already tell me what's going wrong here, because we've seen it in lots of corners. So, again, we're going in a little slow, but then you're trying to get on the, just here, right here where my cursor
getting
is.
on the throttle too early, and then
you're
and
at
then
34%
I'm losing it on the exit.
Yeah, exactly. Although actually this time you don't lose very much on the exit. If anything, you actually get a pretty good exit. But that's in terms of speed. What this doesn't take into account is distance. So you might be exactly the same speed as me, but if you're travelling further, that extra speed wasn't worth it. So when you look down here, right here, we're both doing 78k, but you're travelling maybe 1 or 2 further meters than me, so you're going to be losing time regardless. So, yeah, so shorter, tighter, wait for the throttle, then when you get to it, you can commit. This next one, not bad actually. The middle to the exit is actually very good in this next hairpin. Like, very, very good in terms of speed. Slightly wide, but good in terms of speed. What killed this one was, in order to do that, you were a bit too safe. So this one, you just overslowed it. So I'm going to put on here, slightly less braking intensity for hairpin 2. And I know there are other hairpins on the lap, but I'd call this like hairpin 1 and hairpin 2. I've got no idea what their real names are, but hairpin 1 and hairpin 2. So just here, you can see where you spike up on the brake, and that means you overslow here. And of course, that means you can get a really good exit because, you know, you've got all the time in the world to get it angled through there. So we just want to change that compromise slightly, go into that corner slightly quicker, but you still want the nice slow minimum right there. And then penultimate corner doesn't even look like a corner anymore, does it, on the data, because you're going full throttle through it. So this is a green tick. Nailed it. If I can type it. Final corner. You're not bad, actually. Not bad at all. Looks like you're trying to enter a bit too fast, and that's then, you know, making you go a bit wide. So this early throttle here isn't bad. You're doing that because you've got to a low minimum speed. The thing that's bad is actually the late braking. You've got in a little bit too late, then had to brake a bit too hard, and that means right at the point you want to be kind of cruising smoothly to the apex, you're having to overslow it and go, oh, I'm a bit wide. You can see how wide the red line is there. So actually just slightly more careful into the final corner. So I'm going to write here, you can actually back off the entry speed slightly and benefit from a smoother mid-corner. Well, you're not fighting the car too much through here. You know, you're kind of gliding through. Shorter distance, because you won't be running wide. And higher minimum speed. Basically, by trying to go minimum, there we go, speed. By trying to go in faster,
Okay,
that's then
10 minutes to go.
forcing
That's
you
10
to
minutes left.
hang on to it just here. And obviously you don't want to do that, so it's a nice easy one. So there we go. That is your data for that run for today. To find this, you go into your Garage 61 account and you go to Analyze. And because I've invited you in as like a kind of co-conspirator or whatever they call it, you see your names down here. So this should be somewhere on your recently analysed. It's probably the only one because you've not been doing data analysis. And then when you click on that, it takes you straight to that. If you want to look at other data, so if you want to see other people's laps or whatever anyone else is doing in the team, you click on Teams. Obviously, you probably only got one. And then when you go Members, you find the person you want. So if it's me, click on me. And then Activity shows you all the stuff they've been doing. And then you can find the right session, which would be the most recent one there. And then just choose the lap you want and hit Analyze. And then it gives you the option. Do you want to add this to an analysis that you've already got, or do you want to do a new one? And obviously, you probably just do a new one.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I know I've just told you loads of stuff, but it's quite simple once you start using it. It's quite a user-friendly bit of software.
This is super helpful. Thank you so much.
That's it. That's awesome, man. I'm going to stop the recording and